I stared at my phone, refreshing my notifications for the 100th time. Nothing. Not a single happy birthday message from my family. The same family I'd spent years keeping together through countless celebrations, emergencies, and drama. I'm Kylie, and at 30 years old, I thought I knew what to expect from the people who were supposed to care about me most. I was wrong. Still nothing? Lewis asked, sliding a consolatory latte across my desk. As my best friend and coworker, he'd been watching me obsess over my phone all morning. Not even from Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Remember last year when I organized that surprise party for June's birthday? 3 months of planning, coordinating with 20 people, and making sure Dad didn't accidentally spoil it? Lewis nodded, pulling up a chair. And the year before that, when you flew across the country because Braxton broke up with his girlfriend. 4 days of emotional support and ice cream runs, I confirmed, forcing a smile. Don't forget last month's anniversary dinner for Mom and Dad. I had to call 8 different restaurants to find one that could accommodate everyone's dietary restrictions. My phone buzzed, my heart jumped, but it was just a spam email. Maybe they're planning something, Lewis suggested. But we both knew better. My family didn't plan. That was my job. The family coordinator, the emotional glue, the one who remembered every birthday, anniversary, and important date. At 5 o'clock, I packed up my things, still phoneless, except for work emails and social media notifications from distant acquaintances. Luis gave me a tight hug before I left. Want to grab dinner? He offered. I shook my head. I should stop by my parents' house. Maybe they just forgot to charge their phones or something. The drive to their house felt longer than usual. Every red light seemed to mock me, giving me more time to remember all the birthdays I'd made special for everyone else. June's surprise party, Braxton's 25th with the custom cake and video messages from all his college friends, Mom's 50th, where I'd arranged for relatives to fly in from 3 different states. I pulled into their driveway, noting that everyone's cars were there. Thursday family dinner, another tradition I'd started 2 years ago to keep everyone connected. Through the window, I could see them all gathered around the dining table. Mom was passing around what looked like her famous lasagna. Dad was gesturing animatedly about something. June was laughing, while Braxton scrolled through his phone. My hands trembled as I turned off the engine. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the door and let myself in. "Oh, Kylie," Mom looked up, surprised. "We weren't expecting you tonight." "Hi," I said quietly, still standing in the doorway. I thought, well, I was wondering if anyone remembered what day it is. Blank faces stared back at me. "Thursday," Braxton offered, not looking up from his phone. "It's my birthday," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The silence that followed was deafening. "Oh, honey," Mom finally said, but her tone wasn't apologetic. It was dismissive. "You should have reminded us. You know how busy everyone's been." "Busy?" I repeated incredulously. I managed to remember everyone's birthdays, anniversaries, and important dates, despite working full-time. "Don't be dramatic, Kylie," June cut in. "It's just a birthday. We can celebrate another day." Dad nodded in agreement. "You're too old to make such a fuss about birthdays anyway." I felt something snap inside me. Not in an angry way, but in a quiet, final way. Like a thread that had been stretched too thin for too long. "You're right," I said, surprising them with my calm tone. "It is just a birthday, and I am being ungrateful for expecting acknowledgement from my family." "That's not what Mom started, but I held up my hand. "No, really, it's fine. I understand now." I turned toward the door. "Enjoy your dinner." "Aren't you staying?" Braxton called out. "Mom made enough for everyone." I paused, with my hand on the doorknob. "No, thanks. I have plans with people who remembered." As I walked back to my car, I could hear them through the open window, their voices carrying clearly in the evening air. "She's being ridiculous," June said. "So ungrateful," Mom agreed. "If she wanted to celebrate, she should have planned something herself." I sat in my car, letting their words wash over me. They were right about one thing. I should have planned something. I should have planned my exit from being their emotional crutch long ago. Starting now, things were going to change, and they had no idea what they'd just set in motion. The first test of my resolve came 3 days later, when Mom's text lit up my phone. "Don't forget to order the cake for Aunt Emery's birthday next week. The one from that bakery she likes." I stared at the message for a long moment before putting my phone face down on my desk. Louis glanced over from his cubicle, raising an eyebrow. "They're already asking for favors," I said, turning back to my computer. And nothing. "I'm not doing it." My phone buzzed again and again. I ignored it until lunchtime, when Louis practically dragged me to our usual cafe. "You have 7 missed calls from your mom," he said, checking my phone screen. "Are you sure about this? Watch this," I said, calling her back. She answered on the first ring. "Finally, did you order the cake yet? And remember, Emery likes—" "No, Mom, I didn't order the cake," I interrupted calmly. "I won't be ordering it." Silence. "Then, what do you mean you won't be ordering it? You always handle these things." "Not anymore. I'm sure you can figure it out. The bakery's number is in the family group chat. I posted it last year." "Kylie, stop being difficult. This is about your birthday, isn't it? We said we were sorry." "Actually, you didn't," I corrected her. "But this isn't about that. I'm just busy with my own life right now." I hung up before she could respond. Louis whistled low. "That was ice cold," he said, but he was grinning. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying," I admitted. "But also, right?" The next week passed in a blur of ignored calls and declined invitations. I muted the family group chat after the 15th message, asking where I was and why I wasn't responding. June tried stopping by my apartment, but I'd already warned my doorman not to let any family members up. The real challenge came when Bianca called. "Your mom just called me in a panic," my cousin said. Apparently, Aunt Emery's birthday dinner was a disaster. I took a sip of wine, curled up on my couch. "Oh? The cake was wrong. Half the family got the wrong time because no one sent out proper invitations. And your dad forgot to make a reservation, so they ended up eating at Denny's." "Sounds stressful," I said neutrally. "Kylie," Bianca's voice softened. "What's going on? This isn't like you." "Maybe that's the problem," I replied. "Maybe I've been too much like me and not enough like them. Self-focused and unbothered by other people's feelings." "That's harsh, is it?" "They forgot my birthday, Bianca. Not just forgot. They made me feel guilty for expecting them to remember." A pause. "I know. That's why I didn't go to Emery's dinner. Told them I had food poisoning." I felt a rush of affection for my cousin. "Thanks. So what's the plan?" "You can't avoid them forever." "I'm not avoiding them," I said, straightening up. "I'm just stepping back, let them handle their own lives for once." My phone beeped, another text from Braxton. "Mom's freaking out about planning Dad's retirement party next month. Can you at least help with that?" "No," I typed back. "I'm sure you'll figure it out." "But you're so good at this stuff," he replied immediately. "Time to learn then," I sent, then muted his conversation too. Bianca was still on the line. "They're going to implode without you, you know." "Maybe they need to," I said quietly. "Maybe we all do." The next morning, I ran into June at my local coffee shop. I'd forgotten she sometimes came here before work. "Finally!" she exclaimed, blocking my path to the counter. "You can't keep ignoring us, Kylie. This is childish." I met her gaze steadily. "I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not managing everyone's lives anymore. Is this really all because of your birthday? Get over it." Several people turned to look at us. I kept my voice low and calm. "No, June. This is about years of taking everyone for granted. About expecting me to be there for everything while never being there for me. About calling me ungrateful for having feelings. That's not." "It is," I cut her off. "And you know what? I'm tired. I'm tired of being the only one who tries, who remembers, who cares. So I'm done." "Done?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Done being the family secretary. Done being the emotional support system. Done being taken for granted." I stepped around her to place my order. When I turned back, she was still standing there, looking lost. "What are we supposed to do?" she asked quietly. I grabbed my coffee from the counter. "Whatever you want, June. That's the point. It's not my problem anymore." As I walked out, I felt lighter than I had in years. The guilt was still there, but it was overshadowed by something else, a growing sense of freedom. 2 weeks into my family detox, Aunt Emery invited me for coffee. Unlike the others, she'd respected my space, so I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe downtown. "You look different," she said as I sat down. "More relaxed." "I feel different," I admitted, stirring my latte. "How bad was your birthday dinner?" Emery laughed. "Oh, honey, it was like watching a car crash in slow motion. Your mother spent half the night apologizing about the cake. They ordered chocolate when everyone knows I'm allergic. Your father kept checking his phone because he was convinced he had another reservation somewhere else. And Braxton. June tried to organize a group photo, but forgot to bring her camera. Braxton showed up an hour late because no one told him we changed the time." She leaned forward. "But that's not why I asked you here." I raised an eyebrow. "No? I overheard something interesting at that disaster of a dinner. Your mother and June were in the bathroom. They didn't know I was in the stall." My curiosity piqued. "What did they say?" "June's been hiding something from the family. She's 3 months pregnant." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" "She's terrified to tell everyone because she's not married. And you know how traditional your parents are. She was telling your mom she'd planned to ask you for help breaking the news. But," Emery spread her hands. "But I'm not available anymore," I finished. "Exactly." Your mother's response was interesting though. She said, "We can't rely on Kylie forever. It's time we learn to handle our own problems." I sat back, processing this. "That's surprisingly self-aware." "Don't get too excited," Emery warned. 5 minutes later, she was complaining about how selfish you're being. My phone buzzed. A message from Braxton. "Dad's retirement party is this weekend. Please come. It's falling apart." Speaking of falling apart, I showed Emery the text. "Are you going?" I shook my head. "I can't. If I step in now, nothing will change." Later that evening, Bianca called with a live update from the retirement party planning session. "Your mom tried to order catering from that Italian place Dad loves," she reported, barely containing her laughter. "Turns out it closed 2 years ago. The one that shut down right after I got food poisoning there. That's the one." June suggested the country club, but no one knows who to contact there because you always handled the bookings. I could hear raised voices in the background. "What's that?" "Oh, Braxton just told everyone he can't make it Saturday because he has tickets to a concert. Your mom's having a meltdown." The concert he bought tickets for 3 months ago. I reminded him about Dad's retirement date back then. "Well, apparently no one wrote it down after you mentioned it." More shouting erupted in the background. "Hold on," Bianca said. Oh no." "What?" "June just threw up in the decorative plant. I think the stress got to her. Your mom's asking if she's sick and, yep, June just blurted out that she's pregnant. Your dad looks like he's about to pass out." I closed my eyes, imagining the chaos. "How's Mom taking it?" "She's sitting there with her mouth open." "Wait." She just asked who's going to help plan the baby shower. Everyone turned to look at the empty chair where you usually sit. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. "They'll figure it out." Actually, Bianca's voice dropped to a whisper. "I think they might be. Braxton just offered to cancel his concert tickets, and June's boyfriend, sorry, the baby's father, just arrived. He's offering to help with the retirement party planning." "Really?" "Yeah, it's like, without you there to fix everything. They're being forced to step up. It's messy and disorganized, but they're trying." I heard Mom's voice in the background. "We can't keep expecting Kylie to manage our lives. We need to show her we can do better." "Did you hear that?" Bianca asked. "I did," I said softly, "but they have a long way to go." "True." "Oh God, your dad just tried to take charge of the menu planning, but he doesn't know about June's new gluten intolerance or Braxton's girlfriend's nut allergy." The allergies I documented in the family shared notes app? The one no one else knows how to access. Yeah, that one. Bianca paused. They're actually kinda sweet though, in a chaotic way. Your mom's crying, but she's hugging June. Dad's shaking hands with June's boyfriend. Braxton's on the phone canceling his concert tickets. I felt something shift inside me. Not regret, exactly, but recognition. They were trying. Messily, imperfectly, but trying. Keep me posted, I asked. Of course. Oh, and Kylie, they miss you. Not just what you do for them, they miss you. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet apartment, thinking about family, growth, and the painful process of change. Maybe they needed to fall apart, a little, to put themselves back together the right way. My phone lit up with another text from Mom. We understand now. We're trying to do better. Please give us a chance to show you. I left it unanswered. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't immediately mute the conversation. Dad's retirement party was exactly the beautiful disaster I expected it to be. I watched the chaos unfold through Bianca's steady stream of texts and photos. The cake says, "Happy retirement done. They got your dad's name wrong," she reported. June's trying to scrape off the "Don" with a plastic knife. I was curled up on my couch with Louis, who'd brought over pizza and insisted on being my emotional support person for the evening. Your mom just tried to give a speech, another text read. She started crying halfway through because she forgot to write it down. But then Braxton stepped in and said some really nice things about your dad. Actually made everyone tear up. See? Louis pointed at the screen. They're managing. My phone rang. It was June. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Hey, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I know you don't want to talk to us right now, but I needed to tell you something. I waited. I'm sorry, she continued. Not just about your birthday, about everything. Watching everyone try to pull this party together without you. It made me realize how much we've taken you for granted. June. No, let me finish. My boyfriend Mark, he asked why we relied on you so much. I didn't have an answer. It made me feel awful, because the truth is we just got lazy. We knew you'd handle everything, so we stopped trying. I heard commotion in the background. How's the party going? She laughed wetly. It's a mess. The food's cold. Dad's name is wrong on everything. And Mom forgot to invite half his golf friends. But everyone's helping. Really helping. Not just saying they will and then disappearing. Even Braxton canceled his plans to be here. That's good, I said softly. Yeah, and I'm showing now. The pregnancy, I mean. Mom's been surprisingly great about it. She and Mark's mom are already arguing over who gets to host the baby shower. I told them I can handle it myself. Can you? Honestly? No idea, but I'm going to try. That's what I wanted to tell you. I'm trying. We all are. After we hung up, Louis gave me a knowing look. You're going soft. Am not, I protested. I'm just glad they're figuring things out. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Bianca, this time with a photo. My family was gathered around Dad, who was wearing a slightly crooked, world's best dad hat that looked handmade. Despite the obvious chaos in the background, mismatched decorations, that horrible cake, and what looked like takeout containers instead of catered food. They were all smiling, really smiling. Then came another text, this time from Braxton. Remember when you made that video montage for my 25th? I tried to do something similar for Dad. It's awful, but he cried anyway. I was about to respond when someone knocked on my door. Louis raised his eyebrows as I went to answer it. It was my cousin Bianca, looking flushed and slightly out of breath. Before you close the door, she said quickly, I'm not here as a family messenger. I'm here as your friend. I let her in. She took in the pizza boxes and Louis on the couch. The party's still going, she said, but I needed to tell you something in person. They're changing, Kylie. Really changing. I know, I said. June called. No, you don't understand. Your mom started a family calendar app on her phone. Braxton's actually writing down important dates. June's boyfriend is offering to host Thanksgiving this year. Your dad, she paused, smiling. Your dad made a spreadsheet. Louis choked on his pizza. A spreadsheet. For family birthdays and anniversaries, it's terrible. He somehow managed to list August as having 32 days, but he's trying. I sat down heavily. They didn't need me after all. No, Bianca said firmly. They needed you to stop enabling them. There's a difference. She pulled out her phone. Look at this. It was a video from the party. Mom was standing up, glass in hand, looking nervous but determined. I want to thank everyone for coming, she said in the video. This isn't the perfect party our Kylie would have planned. The food's wrong, the decorations are a mess. And yes, that cake has the wrong name. She paused. But we did it ourselves. And maybe that's what Kylie's been trying to tell us all along. That we need to stand on our own feet. The video ended. I looked up to find both Louis and Bianca watching me carefully. They're not perfect, Bianca said gently. They're still going to mess up, but they're trying to be better, not just at planning parties, but at being family. My phone lit up with another text from Mom. We saved you some wrong name cake. It's not much, but it's made with love and a lot of humility. When you're ready, we'd love to share it with you. For the first time in weeks, I felt the hard knot in my chest begin to loosen. A week after Dad's retirement party, my parents invited me to dinner. Just the three of us. No siblings, no extended family. I agreed, but suggested a neutral location, the small Italian restaurant near my office. You look good, Mom said when I arrived, pulling me into a tentative hug. Are you eating enough? I'm fine, Mom. I sat down across from them. Dad was fidgeting with his napkin, something I'd never seen him do before. The waiter came to take our drink orders, providing a welcome interruption to the awkward silence. Once he left, Mom cleared her throat. We've been doing a lot of thinking, she began, and talking, mostly about how we've treated you. Mom, please, let me finish. She reached for her purse and pulled out a small notebook. I wrote everything down because I didn't want to forget anything important. Dad touched her arm. Let me, honey. He turned to me. Kylie, I've been a terrible father. The bluntness of his statement caught me off guard. Dad had never been one for emotional conversations. All these years, he continued, I've watched you take care of everyone, plan everything, remember everything. And not once did I stop to ask if it was fair to put that burden on you. It wasn't a burden, I said automatically. Yes, it was, Mom cut in. We made it one. We stopped trying because we knew you would handle everything. We got lazy, entitled. The waiter returned with our drinks. I took a long sip of water, trying to steady myself. When you stopped, Dad said, everything fell apart. But you know what? It needed to fall apart. We needed to see what we'd done to you. Your father spent 3 hours trying to figure out how to use the family calendar app, Mom added with a weak smile. He called Braxton 4 times for help. 5 times, Dad corrected. And I still can't get it to sync properly. Despite myself, I felt a smile tugging at my lips. The sync button is in the settings menu. See? Mom reached across the table, hesitating before taking my hand. You still want to help, it's just who you are, but we took advantage of that. We did more than that, Dad said grimly. We punished you for having feelings about it. Your birthday, he trailed off, looking pained. Your birthday, Mom picked up, was our wake-up call. Not just forgetting it, but how we reacted when you were hurt. We were cruel, Kylie. Yes, I said quietly. You were. They both flinched at my honesty. We can't change the past, Dad said. But we're trying to change the future. I've started therapy. I nearly spilled my water. You? Therapy? He nodded, looking both embarrassed and proud. Turns out, I have a lot to work through about showing emotions and appreciating family. And I've been meeting with June every week, Mom added. Really talking, not just about the baby, but about how we can be better as a family. She's teaching me how to use video chat so we can have virtual family meetings when someone can't be there in person. June is teaching you technology? Well, she's trying. I kept holding the phone upside down the first few times. The waiter came to take our orders. In the brief pause, I noticed something different about my parents. They seemed softer somehow, more vulnerable. "We're not asking you to come back and take care of everything," Dad said after the waiter left. "We're asking for a chance to show you we can change, to be the parents you deserved all along. And if we mess up," Mom added quickly, "we want you to tell us. No more silencing your feelings to keep the peace." I took a deep breath. "I need you to understand something. I can't go back to being the family fixer." "We don't want you to," Dad said firmly. "We want you to be our daughter, not our personal assistant. And we want to celebrate your next birthday properly," Mom added, tears in her eyes. "If you'll let us." "That's months away," I pointed out. "We know. We've already marked it in 3 different calendars." Braxton set up phone reminders for everyone. "June's starting a planning committee. She insists on handling it herself." "Poor June," Dad chuckled. "She tried to reserve a restaurant last week and booked a children's party place by mistake." I couldn't help laughing. "She did not." "Oh yes," Mom grinned. "Complete with a ball pit and party clowns." She was mortified when she realized. For the first time in months, the conversation flowed naturally. We talked through dinner, sharing stories of their fumbling attempts at independence, their small victories, and amusing failures. They weren't perfect, far from it, but they were trying. As we finished our meals, Dad reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "We know it's late," he said softly, "but happy birthday, sweetheart." Inside was a card, not a generic store-bought one, but a handmade card covered in awkward drawings and heartfelt words. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And maybe that's what I'd been waiting for all along. The real test came when June went into premature labor at 7 months. My phone exploded with panicked messages at 3 a.m. "On my way to Memorial Hospital," June texted. Contractions started. Mark stuck in traffic, scared. Before I could respond, messages poured in from everyone else. Mom was already at the hospital. Dad was trying to coordinate with Braxton. Aunt Emery was calling Mark's parents. I stared at my phone, my old instincts screaming to take charge, to start organizing everyone. Instead, I simply texted June, "I'm here if you need me. You've got this." 10 minutes later, Braxton called. "I know you're not doing the whole family coordinator thing anymore," he said quickly, "but I need advice. Mom's freaking out. Dad's in the wrong hospital because he mixed up Memorial with Methodist. And Mark's still stuck on the highway. What do you think you should do?" I asked calmly. There was a pause. I should probably get Mom some coffee to calm her down. Call Dad and give him the right directions. Maybe call Mark's parents to pick him up since they know a shortcut to the hospital. Sounds like a solid plan. "Really?" His voice brightened. "Thanks, sis. Oh, and we haven't forgotten about your birthday next month. June's been planning something special, even with the baby coming early. Braxton, she needs to focus on herself right now. Try telling her that. She says she owes you. We all do." After hanging up, I got dressed and headed to the hospital. Not to take charge, but to be present. When I arrived, I found a surprisingly organized scene. Braxton had set up camp in the waiting room, laptop open, with a spreadsheet tracking who was where and when they'd arrive. Mom was actually calm, armed with coffee, and helping Mark's mother distribute snacks. Dad had finally arrived and was coordinating with the nurses about June's birth plan, the one she'd apparently written herself. "Kylie," Mark hurried over, looking frazzled but relieved. "June's asking for you." In the delivery room, June was propped up on pillows, face contorted in pain, but determined. "Hey," she grabbed my hand. "I didn't think you'd come." "Of course I came. You're my sister. I had this whole birthday surprise planned for you." She groaned through a contraction. "Now this little one's ruining it." "Pretty sure this is a better surprise," I smiled. "Need anything?" "Just stay? Not to fix anything. Just be my sister." I squeezed her hand. "Always." The next few hours were intense. but I watched in amazement as my family worked together without my intervention. Mom and Mark's mother took turns supporting June. Dad and Mark's father handled the endless paperwork. Braxton kept everyone updated through a group chat he'd created. At 7:43 a.m., my niece entered the world, tiny but fighting. She's going to need to stay in the NICU for a while, the doctor explained, but she's strong. As they wheeled the baby away, June caught my hand again. I get it now, she said tiredly. Get what? Why you stepped back, watching everyone step up today. It's like seeing a whole new family. Mark came in, followed by our parents. The nurse says we can visit her in an hour, he announced. Braxton's already set up a visiting schedule, so we don't overwhelm her. Braxton did that, I asked, surprised. He's really stepped up, Dad said proudly. We all had to. Mom pulled out her phone. I've started a group text with all the grandparents and aunts and uncles. Everyone knows to check with Braxton's schedule before visiting. And Mark's sister is handling meal deliveries for when we get home, June added. I didn't even have to ask. I felt tears welling up. Look at you all, functioning without me. Not without you, Dad corrected. Just differently. You're still our heart, Kylie. We just needed to grow our own backbone. Speaking of which, Braxton poked his head in. Mom, your shift to see the baby starts in 10 minutes. Dad, you're after that. I've got it all color-coded. Color-coded? I raised an eyebrow. He grinned. Learned from the best, didn't I? As everyone filed out to take their turns visiting the baby, June held onto my arm. We named her Kylie, she said softly. Hope that's okay. I stared at her. You what? Little Kylie Rose. Because if she's half as strong and loving as her aunt, she'll be amazing. I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. Just promise me one thing, June continued. Promise you'll be around to teach her how to stand up for herself, how to love without losing herself, how to be as brave as her aunt. Looking at my sister, exhausted, emotional, but somehow stronger than I'd ever seen her, I realized something. My family hadn't just learned to function without my constant support. They'd learned to be better people because of its absence. I promise, I whispered, hugging her carefully. But something tells me she'll have plenty of good examples to learn from. As my birthday approached, I noticed my family acting suspiciously. Hushed phone calls, secretive texts, and poorly hidden smiles whenever I was around. Even Louis was being evasive. Just let them try, he said when I confronted him. They've been working really hard on this. 3 days before my birthday, June called from the NICU. Can you come by? Baby Kylie's having a good day, and I need to talk to you about something. When I arrived, June was rocking the tiny baby, who was finally breathing on her own. Mark was passed out in a chair nearby. Look who's here, June cooed to the baby. It's your namesake, the aunt who taught us all how to grow up. How's she doing? I asked, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. Better every day, like us. June looked up at me. Which is actually why I wanted to talk to you. Mom's probably going to kill me for telling you this, but I can't keep it in anymore. Tell me what? They're planning a surprise party for you, but not just any party. She shifted the baby carefully. Everyone's been working on it for weeks. Dad's been practicing a speech. Mom's learning to bake your favorite cake from scratch. She's ruined like 6 attempts already. Braxton's putting together a video compilation of everyone talking about how you changed them by stepping back. I sat down heavily. June. Wait, there's more. You know how they forgot your birthday last time? They've been keeping a journal, all of them, writing down every time they caught themselves taking someone for granted, every time they remembered to step up instead of waiting for someone else to handle things. They what? It was Dad's idea, actually. His therapist suggested it. They're going to give it to you at the party, she smiled. I wasn't supposed to tell you any of this, but I wanted you to know how much thought they're putting into it. Not because they feel guilty. Well, maybe a little, but because they finally understand. The baby made a small noise, and June adjusted her position. The old them would have hired a party planner, ordered an expensive cake, and thrown money at the problem. The new them, they're doing it all themselves. Messily, imperfectly, but genuinely. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Need your opinion on something not birthday related. Wink wink. What's your favorite flower? Asking for a friend. I showed June the text, laughing. They're not very subtle, are they? Not at all. Mom's been stress baking for weeks. The hospital staff is getting really tired of her practice cakes. June grinned. But you know what? She's not giving up. The old mom would have just bought one after the first failed attempt. Another text came through, this time from Braxton. Hey sis, random question. What's that song you always used to play on road trips? The one about family, totally not for anything specific. Oh God, June giggled. He's been trying to make this playlist for days. Called me at midnight last week, asking if you preferred acoustic or original versions of songs. They don't have to do all this, I said softly. No, they don't. That's what makes it special. They want to. June carefully stood up, walking to the window. You know what Mom said when I told her I was naming the baby after you? She said, good, maybe this Kylie will teach us lessons too. My phone kept buzzing, with increasingly obvious, casual questions from family members. Dad wanted to know my favorite childhood memory. Aunt Emery was asking about my preferred cake flavors. Even Mark's parents were getting in on it, inquiring about my favorite restaurants. They're going to be so mad at me for spoiling the surprise, June said, not looking particularly concerned. But I wanted you to have time to prepare, to really see how much has changed. Why? She turned to face me, baby Kylie, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Because last time, on your birthday, you were expecting the bare minimum and got even less. This time, I want you to see every bit of love and effort they're putting in. Every imperfect, handmade, slightly messy attempt to show you they've changed. My phone lit up again, a photo from Mom of what appeared to be another failed cake attempt. Captioned, "This is not your birthday cake," which I'm definitely not making. Look at this. June nodded at my phone. 6 months ago, Mom would have died before showing anyone her failures. Now she's laughing about them, trying again, asking for advice. She carefully placed the baby in my arms. Little Kylie gripped my finger with surprising strength. So when you go to this party you're not supposed to know about, June said softly, remember that every wobbly decoration, every off-key song, every slightly burnt cake is a testament to how much they've grown. How much you taught them by simply stepping back and letting them fall and get back up. Looking down at my tiny namesake, I felt the last bits of hurt and resentment melting away, replaced by something warmer, something like hope. Besides, June added with a mischievous smile, watching them try to keep this secret has been absolutely hilarious. On my birthday, I played along with their surprise, letting Bianca guide me to the community center where my family waited. The moment I walked in, I had to fight back tears. Handmade decorations covered the walls, not perfect, but made with obvious care. A banner reading, "Happy Birthday Kylie," hung slightly crooked, with what looked like Braxton's attempt at drawing flowers in the corners. Surprise! Everyone shouted, and I noticed even their positioning seemed planned, arranged in a way that wouldn't overwhelm me. I know you knew, Mom whispered as she hugged me. June confessed. But look how hard everyone tried anyway. She led me to a table where 3 cakes sat side by side. The first one's lopsided, the second one's a bit burnt on the bottom, but the third one, I finally got it right. They're all perfect, Mom. Dad stepped forward, clearing his throat. He pulled out a piece of paper that was clearly well rehearsed and wrinkled from multiple readings. Kylie, his voice shook slightly. When you were 5, you broke your favorite toy. Instead of crying, you tried to fix it yourself. That should have been our first clue about who you'd become, the fixer, the supporter, the heart of this family. But we took that heart for granted. He paused, collecting himself. Then you taught us the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes love means letting people figure things out for themselves. Braxton stepped up next, laptop in hand. I made something. It's not as good as your videos, and the editing's kinda rough, but he pressed play. The screen showed clips of family members speaking directly to the camera. Remember when I couldn't figure out how to coordinate Dad's retirement party? June's recorded self said. That's when I realized how much you did for us. But look at me now. I managed to plan Mark's birthday last week, only set off the smoke alarm once. The video continued, with similar confessions and stories from everyone, even extended family members. Each clip showed not just appreciation, but evidence of growth. Mom mastering video calls, Dad organizing family meetings, Braxton creating shared calendars. And now, Mom announced as the video ended, "We have something else." They presented me with a leather-bound journal. Inside, I found dated entries from each family member. Today, I remembered to ask June how she was feeling instead of waiting for Kylie to check on her. Mom scheduled my own doctor's appointment without asking anyone to do it for me. Braxton called my daughter just to talk, not to ask for anything. Dad, the entries continued, documenting their journey from dependence to responsibility. "We're still riding in it," June said, bouncing baby Kylie gently. "Every day we try to be better. And we're not done yet," Dad added. "But we wanted you to see the progress." Luis appeared with a gift bag. They even wrapped presents themselves. You should have seen the paper cuts. The party flowed naturally, not perfect, but real. When Mom's cake turned out to be slightly salty, because she'd mixed up sugar and salt measurements, everyone laughed instead of trying to hide it. When Dad's playlist accidentally included some heavy metal song he'd mistaken for my favorite, he just shrugged and started dancing anyway. Near the end of the evening, Aunt Emery pulled me aside. "You did something remarkable," she said. "You made them grow up by stepping back. That's real love." "They did the work themselves," I replied, "because you gave them the chance to." She smiled. "Look at them now." I looked around the room. Dad was helping clean up without being asked. Mom was actually sitting down, letting others handle things. June was showing Braxton how to properly hold the baby. Everyone was pitching in, working together, no one waiting for someone else to take charge. "There's just one thing," Mom said, approaching with a small box. "We know it's your birthday, but we wanted to give you this." Inside was a key. "It's to the house," she explained. "Not because we expect you to always be there, but because we want you to know you always can be. Not as our organizer or fixer, but as our daughter, sister, aunt, just you." "We had to learn the difference," Dad added, "between wanting you around and needing you to handle everything." Baby Kylie made a small noise, and June placed her in my arms. "And this little one needs to learn from the aunt who taught us all how to stand on our own feet." Looking around at my imperfect, trying, growing family, I finally felt it. The balance I'd been seeking. They hadn't just learned to function without me. They'd learned to let me exist as myself. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Mom said, hugging me carefully around the baby. "Thank you for teaching us how to give you the gift you really needed, the chance to just be our Kylie." And in that moment, surrounded by crooked decorations, salty cake, and the people who'd learned to love better by loving less perfectly, I knew we'd all received exactly what we needed.
The gentle May sunlight streamed through the large windows of the Cambridge Public Library. In the children's section, Jennifer Wilson smiled warmly as she handed books to her young visitors. Even at 35, she felt truly blessed to work in the place where she had met her husband Michael 13 years ago. "Hey, Miss Jennifer, which book will you read to us next?" Jennifer smiled tenderly at the little boy's question. She loved her job. Though a librarian's salary wasn't particularly high, nothing made her prouder than seeing the pure smiles on children's faces. "Well." Just as she was about to answer, her smartphone vibrated. The screen showed Michael. Today was the day of the wedding preparation meeting for her sister-in-law Ashley. I'm sorry. I need to take this call. Her husband's slightly tense voice came through the phone. Jenny, Mom wants to meet at that place. Jennifer caught her breath. That place meant Martha's mansion on Brattle Street. It was rare for her mother-in-law to invite their family to her home. All right. I'll head over right after picking up Amy from school. After hanging up, a heavy atmosphere lingered around her. Martha was a prominent figure in Cambridge society. And for 13 years, she had consistently disapproved of Jennifer as her son's wife. Mom, are you okay? Amy, who had just finished her middle school library committee meeting, peered worriedly at her mother's expression from the passenger seat. The 12-year-old daughter had inherited her mother's gentle nature. Yes, I'm fine. It's just, we're going to grandmother's house. Amy's expression clouded. Martha was cold to her granddaughter too. Amy had desperately tried to gain the approval of her grandmother, who used the phrase, library raised, as if it were an insult. Parking in front of the historic Victorian mansion on Brattle Street, they saw Ashley's brand new BMW already parked. She worked at a local luxury real estate company. Recently, there had been talk about her purchasing an ultra-luxury condominium along the Charles River. Well, finally you're here. Ashley's shrill voice echoed as she opened the door. Dressed in a flashy designer dress, she looked down at Jennifer and Amy with an air of superiority. In the living room, Martha sat with dignified posture. Next to her was Ashley's fiancé, Jason Clark, a well-regarded young lawyer in the area. You're late, Jennifer. Martha's cold voice resonated. Working at the library. Her words carried obvious sarcasm. Yes, that's right. Jennifer answered with dignity. Michael silently held his wife's hand. He was a gentle husband, but his tendency to avoid conflict with his mother sometimes left Jennifer feeling lonely. Today, we're doing the final check for Ashley's wedding, Martha began. It's a Martin family tradition. This ring has been worn by the eldest daughter at her wedding for generations. An antique jewelry box sat on the table. Inside was a spectacular ring with sparkling diamonds. It's worth $150,000, Ashley boasted proudly. In that moment, Jennifer didn't miss the strange glint in her sister-in-law's eyes. Perhaps it was a harbinger of the tragedy to come. The spire of Christ Church, Cambridge, reached toward the fresh blue May sky. Since its founding in 1759, this historic church had witnessed countless weddings of prominent families. Today, too, sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, bathing the solemn altar in its glow. Amy, your hair ornament is slightly askew. In the powder room, Jennifer gently adjusted her daughter's hair. Amy, dressed in a pale pink dress, secretly felt proud of her role as a cousin in the wedding. Mom, everything will go well today, right? Jennifer smiled at the question. However, beneath her expression lurked a faint anxiety. Ashley had seemed somewhat unsettled during yesterday's final rehearsal. Yes, it will be a beautiful ceremony. The main hall was already filled with over 100 guests. Leaders of Boston's legal community, Cambridge dignitaries. Martha wore a satisfied expression at this gathering of high society. Oh, Jennifer. Coming out of the powder room, they ran into Kate, Ashley's best friend and chief bridesmaid. She appeared to be filming something with her latest iPhone. "It's going to be a lovely ceremony." While nodding at Kate's words, Jennifer didn't miss the shadow that briefly crossed her face. "Ma'am, the ceremony will begin soon." At the staff member's prompting, guests began taking their seats. Jason waited at the altar, looking slightly nervous. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the preparation room. "The ring! My engagement ring is gone!" Ashley's cry froze the venue, and Martha rushed over. Ashley's face had turned pale. That child stole it." A trembling finger pointed at Amy. "I definitely saw her, coming into the changing room." "Amy?" Michael stared at his daughter. The color drained from Amy's face. No. No." The girl's voice trembled. "I didn't do anything." "Mom, call the police." Martha raised her hand to stop Ashley's words. Her expression showed something like determination. "Shameless." Martha's voice rang out coldly. "You and Amy leave immediately." "Wait." "Amy, absolutely." Despite Jennifer's desperate plea, cold stares swirled around the venue. "A librarian's daughter is a thief. I guess breeding does show." Poor Martha. The whispers cut like knives. "Jenny, let's go home for now." Michael spoke softly. His voice carried its usual indecisiveness. "Don't you believe her? She's your daughter." Jennifer's question was met with averted eyes from her husband. "Amy, let's go." Jennifer wrapped her arm around her daughter's shoulders with dignified composure. The girl's eyes were clouded with tears. Martha and Ashley wore triumphant expressions. "Dad." Amy's trembling voice pierced Michael's back. But he could only stand there, frozen. As they left the church, the light through the stained glass appeared blood red. This was the beginning of the end of their world as they knew it. In the back seat of the taxi, Amy buried her face in her mother's chest, crying. "I didn't do anything, believe me." "Of course. I believe you." Jennifer held her daughter tightly. Outside the car window, the sunlight still sparkled. But in their hearts, dark shadows had already begun to spread. No one could have known that the events of this day were just the beginning. The sound of rain hitting the windows deepened the silence in the Wilson home. Sunday morning had dawned after the wedding day, and Jennifer hadn't slept at all. "Mom." Amy's face, coming down the stairs, was as pale as a shadow. Seeing her daughter who hadn't eaten anything since last night, the mother's heart tightened. "Can you eat something? Just some toast." As she gently touched her daughter's hair, who shook her head, their bodies tensed at the sound from the living room TV. There has been a new development in the shocking incident that occurred at yesterday's wedding at Christ Church, Cambridge. The screen showed the local news anchor's face, clearly different from their usual calm expression. A social media live stream video, allegedly taken by one of the attendees during wedding preparations, is causing huge waves on the internet. In this video, Jennifer caught her breath at the footage that followed. In the church's preparation room, Kate, Ashley's best friend, showing a smiling face in selfie mode. But what was captured in the background? As if those people would have such an expensive ring. Martha's voice was clearly recorded. If we blame Amy, it'll be perfect. Everyone would suspect her, that library raised Ashley's voice. And then the decisive moment. The footage clearly showed Martha taking out the ring and putting it in Ashley's luxury handbag. Amy. Michael's voice echoed as he ran down the stairs. His smartphone trembled in his hand. Taking this matter seriously, the groom, attorney Jason Clark, has announced the cancellation of the marriage. I will never forgive this despicable act against a 12-year-old girl, he stated. The TV played Jason's trembling, angry statement. As a member of the legal profession, I will thoroughly investigate this unconscionable act. The actions of Martha Martin and Ashley Martin go beyond mere defamation, constituting serious psychological abuse of a minor. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Please, we'd like an interview. Could we get Amy's comment? The reporter's shouts echoed through the quiet residential street. Dad. Michael held Amy tightly at her trembling voice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Amy. If only Dad had. Just then, Michael's smartphone rang. The screen showed Mother. Michael hesitated for a moment but resolutely answered the phone. Don't ever call again. His voice carried a coldness never heard before. Michael. I'm your mother. No, not anymore. There's an explanation. What explanation could there be for throwing a 12-year-old girl, your own granddaughter, into hell? The sound of Martha choking could be heard through the phone. Ashley was in trouble. If we could sell the ring. Money? This was all about money. No. Our family's reputation. Family reputation. Michael gave a sardonic smile. Right now, your precious reputation on Brattle Street is in tatters. Martha Martin's shame is trending on social media. Meanwhile, a new storm was raging through Cambridge. Breaking news: new testimony in the Christchurch Cambridge wedding fraud case. Shocking revelation from insider about suspect Martha Martin's financial situation. Suspect Ashley Martin discovered to have unpaid contract money for luxury Charles River condominium. And the situation continued to develop in unexpected directions. A new confession had been posted on Kate's social media account. I can't stay silent anymore. This isn't just about falsely accusing someone of stealing a ring. This was the culmination of years of scheming by the Martin family. In subsequent posts, she revealed everything. Ashley was desperate because she couldn't raise the $300,000 contract money for the luxury condominium. And Martha? She had been planning to drive Jennifer out for 13 years. Because a woman working in a library wasn't worthy of the Martin family status. The post spread instantly, shaking Cambridge to its core. At Christchurch, Cambridge, an emergency press conference was being held. As a church, we take this incident very seriously. Following the church representative's statement, Jason appeared again. I want to offer my sincere apologies to Amy and her family. The solemn church atmosphere made his words even weightier. And I pledge to thoroughly investigate this incident and pursue the legal responsibilities of those involved. Meanwhile, the Wilson home was receiving an unexpected visitor. Kate. Jennifer opened the door hesitantly. I'm sorry, at this hour. In her hands, she clutched a small memory card. This is where it all began. What she handed over with trembling hands was security camera footage from the day before the wedding. This shows that Martha and Ashley had already arranged a buyer for the ring. As Jennifer stood frozen, Kate continued quietly. I couldn't be complicit in these lies anymore. At that moment, Amy ran over and hugged Kate. Thank you, thank you. The girl's tears wet Kate's blouse. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, and thin sunlight began to shine through. It was like morning light awakening from a long nightmare. However, this wasn't the end, but a new beginning. The story of the Martin family's collapse and the Wilson family's truth would continue. The children's section of Cambridge Public Library had regained its usual peaceful atmosphere. On an early summer afternoon 1 month after the incident, Jennifer had finally returned to work. Miss Jennifer is back. Children's voices echoed through the quiet library. Usually, this would call for a reminder about library voices, but today was special. Even the library director watched with warm eyes. How's Amy? Will we see her again? Jennifer smiled gently at the children's questions. Yes, very soon. We're having a special storytelling session today. Just then, a small commotion arose at the library entrance. Ah! Amy entered, accompanied by Michael. Behind the girls stood Jason's dignified figure. Everyone. Jason stepped forward. His solemn lawyer's voice resonated through the library. Today, we have a very important apology and announcement. Local media cameras flashed behind him. First, regarding the malicious defamation against Amy Wilson. On behalf of Christ Church Cambridge and all parties involved, I offer our deepest apologies. Jason bowed deeply. And I would like to announce the establishment of a foundation to restore Amy's honor. A small murmur rippled through the venue. The Amy Wilson Foundation for Library Children. A foundation to support children who learn and grow in libraries. Christ Church Cambridge and my law firm will provide full support. Large tears welled up in Amy's eyes. As the Foundation's first initiative, a new children's section will be established at Cambridge Public Library. It will be called. Jason paused briefly. The Truth and Love Corner. A place for truth and love. Silence enveloped the library. Then, one boy stood up. I know. Amy always helped me when she was the library committee president. Me too. She kindly helped me when I didn't understand my homework. Voices began rising one after another. The children's pure feelings rang out, as if dispelling the dark shadows of the past. Meanwhile, at the mansion on Brattle Street, a different scene was unfolding. Please limit what you take to the essentials. The court officer's cold voice echoed. Martha stared vacantly at her mansion. The flow of funds from the ring sale has been discovered, and there are suspicions of tax evasion. Regarding suspect Ashley's luxury condominium fraud case as well. Business-like conversations echoed coldly through the once glamorous mansion. Ashley had already been voluntarily questioned at the local police station. What awaited her was numerous debts, a broken engagement, and legal responsibility. Meanwhile, at the library, a warm atmosphere spread. Mom. Amy squeezed Jennifer's hand tightly. I've decided. When I grow up, I want to be a lawyer. Like Jason, a lawyer who helps people in trouble. Michael nodded quietly at those words. That's right. Dad will support you with everything he has. His voice no longer held any hesitation. His regret for hurting his wife and daughter had transformed into new determination. But before that, Amy walked toward the new children's corner. Can I do today's storytelling? The library director nodded kindly. In front of the children seated in small chairs, Amy opened a book. Today's book is The Truth Behind the Rainbow. The real story beyond the rainbow. Jennifer watched her daughter's dignified figure from behind. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But these weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of pride and hope. Outside the window, early summer sunlight poured down. And on the library's small window, a beautiful rainbow appeared. A new story begins here. A story full of hope, where truth triumphs and love overcomes trials. Christ Church, Cambridge's Wedding Hall. Early summer, 1 year later. This time, Jason stood at the altar as the groom. But this time, the bride wasn't Ashley. Your courage taught me the importance of truth. Kate smiled in her pure white dress. In the front row sat the three Wilsons. Amy proudly held a bouquet. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here. As the minister's voice rang out, Jennifer quietly closed her eyes. This was true happiness. Not money or status, but happiness supported by genuine love filled this place. Sunlight once again filtered through Christ Church, Cambridge's stained glass windows. This time, the light was warm and full of blessings. One story ended, and another was about to begin. It was a story of a more beautiful tomorrow, illuminated by truth and love. Sunlight streams through the windows of our mansion in Chestnut Hill on this spring morning. As I prepare breakfast in the golden rays of dawn, the sweet aroma of pancakes wafts through the kitchen. Just imagining my 6-year-old son Noah's eyes lighting up fills me with joy. This 5-bedroom Georgian estate was a wedding gift from my husband's parents. The spacious kitchen is equipped with state-of-the-art appliances, and through the windows, I can see carefully tended tulips in the garden. Mama, it smells wonderful. Noah's voice echoes as he bounds down the stairs. His blonde curls shimmer in the morning light, making him look like an angel. His big blue eyes are always full of curiosity, and his innocent smile gives me the strength to face another day. Good morning, Noah. I put extra blueberries in today. Did you finish your homework from yesterday? Yes. I finished all my math and kanji. Do you think the teacher will praise me? Gently stroking my son's head, I plate the fresh pancakes. The amber maple syrup creates tiny rainbows on the table as it catches the morning light. Noah happily picks up his favorite Spider-Man fork and begins to eat. My husband James had left early for work. As a manager at an investment bank, his schedule was always demanding. Though we'd been seeing less of each other lately, I believed it was just because of his busy work schedule. The sight of my tall husband in his gray suit was still my pride and joy. We've been married for 10 years. We met at Lucille, the upscale restaurant where I worked. At this premier French establishment on Newbury Street, James would come every Friday to eagerly ask me questions about wine when I was a novice sommelier. I gradually fell for his sophistication and gentlemanly demeanor. Our first date was at an art museum. After that, it was like something out of a movie: fine dining, weekend drives, and classical concerts. There was always an air of refinement around James. After 6 months of dating, when he proposed under the Eiffel Tower during our Paris trip, I felt an incomparable happiness. True, his mother Elizabeth initially disapproved of my profession as a sommelier, but after earnest persuasion from James, her only son, she appeared to accept it on the surface. "Mama, I'll do my best at school today. The piano recital is coming up, so I'll practice when I get home." As I nodded with a smile at Noah's words, I pushed my recent unease to the back of my mind. My husband had been coming home later and later, always glued to his phone. Large sums would occasionally disappear from our accounts, and our conversations had dwindled. Though I noticed the occasional flash of anxiety on his face, I couldn't bring myself to ask about it. Lately, my mother-in-law had been visiting more frequently, and her cold gaze toward me had intensified. Since being diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 6 months to live, she seemed to have become even more possessive of her son. Though she still maintained her dignity in luxury brands and perfect makeup, there was something obsessive in her eyes. "Caitlin, I'll help with the cleaning. You have work, don't you?" Her tone carried a hint of sarcasm as she invited herself in. To her, a prominent figure in Boston's high society with $300 million in assets, my job was still apparently distasteful. But right now, I want to focus on the happiness before me. I'm giving my all as a sommelier at Lucille, James at his investment bank, and Noah at the prestigious Beaver Country Day School. My best friend Mary supports me as the chef at the same restaurant. Our lunches together are precious moments of respite for me. "Hey, Kate. You haven't seemed yourself lately. Is something wrong?" Even yesterday during lunch when Mary asked me this, I deflected with a vague smile. I climb into the Lexus RX to take Noah to school. The spring streets of Boston, with tulips in full bloom, look like a postcard. The city is bustling with the Red Sox season opener, and Boston Marathon support banners flutter along the roadside. These morning drives are precious mother-son time. See you after school. Have fun in art class. As I kiss Noah goodbye at the school gates, a small worry crosses my mind. But I had no way of knowing it was a prelude to an irreversible tragedy. During the morning at the restaurant, there's a meeting about the new wine list. I change into my white sommelier suit and carefully pin up my curly hair. My reflection in the mirror looks the same as always. Yet my intuition tells me something is definitely changing. The morning work at Lucille progresses as usual. While I'm absorbed in selecting wines for the new list, my best friend Mary approaches me. "Kate, how about lunch? I made a new quiche." Mary is my only close friend and Lucille's talented chef. Lunch breaks with her have become my daily comfort. "Mary, I've actually been worried about something." Just as I was about to tell her about my husband's recent behavior, my phone rings. My mother-in-law's name appears on the screen. "Caitlin, I've prepared a special dinner tonight. Let's all eat together as a family. I've already contacted James." Her voice lacks its usual arrogance. There's something urgent about it. "Yes, of course. Is there some special occasion?" Just a family gathering. Come at 7 o'clock. Bring Noah too. Even after hanging up, her tone bothers me. After finishing my afternoon work, I pick up Noah from school. He cheerfully tells me about his day as usual. But as we drive toward my mother-in-law's mansion, his energy seems to fade. Noah, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? Yes, my head hurts a little. The mansion at twilight seems to carry a heavier atmosphere than usual. The crystal chandelier casts a cold light, and the room filled with expensive furnishings is eerily quiet. My mother-in-law is already seated in the dining room. She's wearing an expensive dress with perfect makeup. But there's an unfamiliar look in her eyes. Welcome, Caitlin, Noah. Please, sit down. The table is set with a full French course, hors d'oeuvres, soup, main dish, and dessert. Everything is plated with restaurant-quality perfection. Sorry, I'll be a bit late. A message arrives from my husband. My mother-in-law shows no particular concern and begins pouring wine. You know this wine, don't you? It's a 2015 Chateau Margaux. As a professional, I knew the wine's value. It easily exceeds $1,000 per bottle. Such an expensive wine isn't usually opened for a regular dinner. James arrived 30 minutes later. He seems somewhat unsettled as he takes his seat. His usually perfectly knotted tie is slightly askew. Mother, is there some special reason for today? Just a family dinner. The meal progresses in an unusual silence. The only sound is silver cutlery touching fine china. Noah unusually has no appetite and merely picks at his food. As the crème brûlée is being served for dessert, my vision begins to blur. Mama, I feel sick. Noah's voice seems distant. As I try to stand, my legs give way. We collapse onto the expensive carpet. Through my fading consciousness, I faintly hear a conversation. Everything will be resolved soon. Once they're gone, we'll be free. It was my husband's voice. Yes, Jamie. I'll set your life right with my remaining time. My mother-in-law's voice echoes. After that, my memories become fragmentary. An ambulance siren. Mary's desperate voice. Then, a white ceiling. The smell of disinfectant stings my nose. A steady rhythm marks the silence. My consciousness gradually emerges from a white fog. A private room in the hospital. Moonlight streams through the window. The wall clock second-hand heavily marks time, showing 2 a.m. Noah. I call my son's name in a hoarse voice. I feel a dull pain in my arm where the 4 is inserted. My body feels heavy as lead, and my thoughts are foggy. Mrs. Caitlin, how are you feeling? A doctor in a white coat quietly addresses me. She's a gentle-mannered woman in her 50s. Noah, my son. Don't worry. Your son is receiving treatment in another room. His condition is stable. How relieved I felt at those words. A deep sigh escapes naturally. What happened? Sleeping pill poisoning. Fortunately, it was discovered early, and appropriate treatment was administered. Thanks to your friend who called the ambulance. Mary. She saved us. When she couldn't reach me by phone, she became suspicious and came to check on us. "Ma'am, are you able to talk?" A middle-aged man in a suit stands in the corner of the room. "He's the lawyer I consulted about divorce last week." "Yes, I'm all right. There's important news. A serious situation has developed concerning you and Noah." The lawyer's voice carries a heavy weight. "Actually, James and your mother-in-law have died in an accident." Those words freeze the air in the hospital room. "What?" "Tonight, on the highway. They couldn't make a turn and broke through the guardrail." Fragmentary memories return to my mind. The dinner. The wine. The conversation I heard before losing consciousness. Initial police investigation has revealed something. They had tickets to the Caribbean at the time of the accident. And the lawyer pauses momentarily and takes out some documents. These are draft divorce papers that James secretly requested last week. They specify no child support or alimony payments whatsoever. My hands are shaking. Looking back, I had also consulted a different lawyer about divorce last week. My husband's changed behavior, the increasing secrets, the disappearing money. I knew we couldn't continue like this. Actually, the police contacted me. They found interesting evidence in James's car. Just then, the hospital room door opened. Let me explain. A detective with a commanding presence appeared. She stands straight, fixing me with a sharp gaze. "I'm Detective Sarah Murphy from Major Cases. What I'm about to tell you concerns serious matters affecting you and your child." The detective sits down and opens her notebook. "First, we found a large quantity of sleeping pills in James's car. They were obtained using your mother-in-law's prescription. And on the laptop in the car." She pauses briefly, sending me a glance as if checking my condition. "Details of a murder plan were recorded." Those words send chills down my spine. According to the plan, after rendering you unconscious with sleeping pills, they intended to return at midnight and submerge the car in the ocean. I grab a glass of water with trembling hands. My throat is dry. My thoughts wander between reality and unreality. Why? While we're still investigating the full motive, several facts have come to light. James had substantial debts, and we've confirmed the existence of a 26-year-old mistress. The detective's words continue relentlessly. Your mother-in-law had terminal cancer with little time left. We believe she tried to resolve her son's financial collapse before dealing with the inheritance issues. Just then, a familiar voice comes from the hallway. "Mama." Noah enters in a wheelchair, accompanied by a nurse. "Noah." We embrace. Warm body temperature, steady heartbeat. We're alive. We can live. "Ma'am, there's one more report." The lawyer speaks again. "Your mother-in-law's will hasn't been found. This means the legal inheritance applies, and all assets will pass to Noah. I'll assist as guardian in managing the property." Moonlight streams through the window, gently illuminating mother and son. A nightmare-like event. But we're alive. We can greet another morning. "Mama, I was scared." "It's okay now, Noah. We have many more tomorrows waiting for us." As we embrace, dawn breaks around us. I was finally beginning to understand that this wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. A week after discharge, I learned the whole truth in an interview room at the police station. The mountain of documents Detective Murphy brought revealed my husband's life that I never knew. First, let me tell you about James's financial situation. The detective opened a blue file. It contained unbelievable numbers. He was a gambling addict. His casino debts amount to $50 million. Furthermore, embezzlement at his company has been discovered. The repayment deadline was the end of this month. Bank statement copies, stacks of IOUs spread across the desk. Desperate numbers written in my husband's handwriting. Luxury car loans, credit card bills, casino collection notices. The public face and the private face. The true identity of my husband, who led a perfect double life, was now being revealed. And this is the decisive evidence. The detective presented a luxury apartment contract. This is a lease agreement for a new home with his mistress, Jessica Morris. It seems they were planning a new life on St. Lucia in the Caribbean. My hands shake. 10 years of marriage. Memories of the family we built together. Was it all just perfect acting? Now, let me explain your mother-in-law's involvement. This time, a red file is opened. Elizabeth was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer 3 months ago. 6 months to live. Right after that, unusual movements began. Security camera footage plays one after another. Secret meetings at the hospital late at night. Private discussions in luxury hotel lobbies. The murder plan for mother and son had been developing since then. Large quantities of sleeping pills were prescribed to Elizabeth by her primary physician. Under the pretext of cancer pain. The detective spread out new materials. Furthermore, this is the notebook detailing the plan. The notebook contained meticulous entries. April 15th, location, home dining room, mix sleeping pills in wine, create alibi of business dinner, dispose of car in ocean at 2 a.m. Everything had been planned. Our lives were scheduled to be erased so simply. Why that particular night? To my question, the detective answered gravely. Elizabeth's condition suddenly worsened. She probably wanted to fix her son's life with her remaining time. Heavy silence falls in the interrogation room. However, an unexpected event disrupted the plan. The detective showed a new photo. Mary's image captured on security cameras. My best friend had become suspicious when she couldn't reach me by phone and came to check on us. When Mary called the ambulance, the perpetrators had finished their business dinner as planned and were preparing for the midnight crime. However, when they heard the ambulance sirens, security cameras caught the image of 2 people hurriedly getting into a car. The accident resulted from their hasty escape attempt. They couldn't make the turn and broke through the guardrail. As I listened to the story, I gazed out the window. Spring sunlight streams into the police station courtyard, where cherry blossoms sway in the wind. Mrs. Caitlin, there's one more important report. The detective takes out new documents. These are the results of investigating Elizabeth's estate. Total assets are $300 million. And no valid will has been found. That means, yes, by legal inheritance, all assets will pass to Noah. Of course, you'll be the property manager until he comes of age. Just then, my cell phone rings. It's the hospital. Mom. They say I can be discharged. Noah shouts happily on the other end. Really? That's wonderful, Noah. Yes. Mary's here too. We're going to look at the new house together, right? That's right. The new home Mary found for us. A house in a quiet residential area, a little way from Chestnut Hill. The place where our new life will begin. Mrs. Caitlin. The detective smiles gently. The remaining procedures can wait. Your precious son is waiting. I stand up and grab my bag. As I leave the police station, spring breeze caresses my cheeks. Flower petals fall as if blessing us. While driving, I thought about how this tragedy had brought us a new life. The wounds are deep, and healing will take time. But Noah and I have a future. And we have friends like Mary. When I arrive at the hospital, Noah is waiting in a wheelchair with Mary by his side. Mama. My son waves with a beaming smile. Mary too gives us a warm look. Let's go. To our new home. Noah nods firmly at my words. In the spring sunlight, our new story was about to begin. I am Melissa Anderson, a 34-year-old ordinary mother living in the suburbs of St. Paul, Minnesota. At 7 in the morning, winter sunlight streams through the kitchen window, and the coffee maker on the counter fills the air with a pleasant aroma. This is how my day begins. While making French toast with the scent of cinnamon wafting through the air, I listen to my daughter Hannah's footsteps coming from upstairs. Now 8 years old, she's a third grader at Maplewood Elementary School. At this age, she always needs a little prodding to get ready in the morning. Hannah, breakfast is ready. Following the sound of footsteps rushing down the stairs, my daughter appears with a pink ribbon in her hair. The way she enters the kitchen while fixing her hair reminds me of a little lady. She has an artistic talent and a unique sense of style in combining clothes. Today, she's wearing a light blue dress with a white cardigan, and at her collar, she's pinned her favorite rainbow brooch. I'm going to play with dolls with Emily after school today. Over breakfast, Hannah excitedly talks about her plans for school. She loves playing with dolls and often spends time after school with her classmates. Thanks to her bright and honest personality, she has many friends and is well liked by her teachers. That's wonderful. But remember to finish your homework first, okay? Hannah gives a small nod to my words. My growing daughter has a healthy appetite, and the French toast disappears in no time. My husband Brian is away on another business trip this week. He works as an engineer at a medical equipment manufacturer, developing new products. Despite his busy schedule, this gentle and family-oriented man always makes time to spend weekends with us. When we met 6 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding, I was drawn to his sincere personality. After dating for a year, we married and enjoyed a happy newlywed life. And now, we've built this fulfilling family life. I work as a project manager at a web design company. Balancing work and childcare isn't easy, but I try to maintain a bright and positive attitude. We moved to this new residential area a year ago, choosing it primarily for the good school district. Our 2-story house, predominantly white, is the perfect space for our family. Through the large living room window, I can see our front yard gleaming in the morning sun. The flowers Brian planted over the weekend are still blooming vibrantly, despite Minnesota's cold weather. The living room with its fireplace is essential for our family gatherings during holidays. Especially in the cold season, we spend time cuddling on the sofa watching movies or enjoying board games together. Brian's sister Vanessa lives about 15 minutes away by car. She's a career-driven woman working as a financial advisor at an investment consulting firm. Though unmarried, she serves as vice president of the PTA and takes care of their parents. Her meticulous personality can sometimes seem strict, but she dotes on Hannah very much. "Mom, it's time to go to school." While lost in thought, the clock has struck 8. I pack Hannah's lunchbox with homemade sandwiches and fill her water bottle with her favorite apple juice. As I watch my daughter's retreating figure at the doorway, I feel another day beginning. With a coffee from Caribou Coffee in hand, I begin preparing for work. I have an important client meeting today. After quickly cleaning up breakfast while looking around the open kitchen, I sling my laptop bag over my shoulder. Getting into the car, I check my makeup in the rearview mirror. Hoping this peaceful life continues, I start the engine. My car heads toward I-35W in the cool morning air, signaling the start of another ordinary day. The end-of-year charity bazaar at Maplewood Elementary School is an annual event at this time of year. This year, on the last Saturday of November, the schoolyard was buzzing with parents busy with preparations since early morning. The sky was covered with gloomy gray clouds, and occasional snowflakes fell and melted. Still, everyone worked with determined expressions, setting up tents and arranging merchandise. They all understood how important this bazaar was for supporting families in need in the community. In one corner of the schoolyard, food trucks were already lined up, ready to serve warm drinks. The sweet scent of cinnamon and cocoa wafted through the cold air. I had been helping with the setup in the gymnasium since early morning as a PTA member. Over 30 sales booths were neatly arranged, filled with donated items from parents and community residents, used clothing, handmade crafts, toys, and more. All proceeds from this bazaar would go to support families in poverty in the community. "Melissa, does this arrangement look all right?" It was Vanessa who called out to me. As PTA vice president, she was one of the organizers of this bazaar. Her meticulous personality really proves valuable at times like these. "Yes, it's perfect. Thanks to you, this year's bazaar is going to be wonderful." As the 10 a.m. opening time approached, a long line formed at the school gates. People from the community waited eagerly for the opening, holding warm drinks in the cold weather. The tempting aroma of hot dogs and popcorn wafted from the food stalls. Hannah was helping nearby with her friend Emily. Both wore handmade staff badges on their chests, looking very proud. As soon as the doors opened, the gymnasium filled with excitement. People gathered at each booth, checking price tags and examining items. Having finished my initial tasks, I decided to look around the booths with Hannah. At the back of the gymnasium was the antique corner. Inside glass cases were carefully polished dishes and vintage accessories. The booth was being managed by a woman named Jane. Suddenly, Hannah stopped in her tracks. Her gaze was fixed on a doll marked with a special item tag in the glass case. It was a Western doll that looked as if it had stepped out of the Victorian era. The pale cream-colored dress was so exquisite it hardly seemed handmade, with even tiny shoes crafted in detail. The golden curls had a soft sheen, and the porcelain cheeks were tinted with a gentle rose color. The doll's deep blue eyes emanated a mysterious sparkle that captivated viewers. "Mom, this doll is so beautiful." Hannah's voice was filled with pure admiration. The antique collection tag showed a price of $298. While not cheap, it could be considered reasonable given its value. "Please, this could be my Christmas present." My daughter's eyes sparkled. Indeed, Christmas was less than a month away. "I thought this doll might become a special memory." "She has such lovely eyes," Jane smiled kindly. "This is truly a treasured piece. I'm sure she'll become a wonderful friend for your daughter." Encouraged by those words, I decided to make the purchase. Jane carefully wrapped the doll while explaining its history and care instructions in detail. A golden ribbon was beautifully tied on top of the wrapping paper. "Thank you, Mom. I'll take good care of her." Hannah hugged the doll preciously. Seeing her smile made me feel the expensive purchase was worth it. "Melissa, are you leaving already?" I turned to find Vanessa standing there. Her gaze briefly fell on the package Hannah was holding. Yes, Hannah found a beautiful doll. She wants to take it home right away to display it in her room. I see. I'm glad you found something nice. I thought I noticed a change in Vanessa's tone, but it must have been my imagination. She hurriedly headed off to another booth. On our way to the parking lot, we crossed the schoolyard where food stalls were bustling with activity. A long line had formed in front of the hot chocolate stand steaming with warm vapor. In the cold weather, children were happily chatting while warming their hands with hot drinks. "Mom, I want to make a room for Elizabeth when we get home." Hannah's eyes sparkled as she kept checking the doll in the package. The way she gently stroked the edge of the wrapping paper with her small fingers showed her gentle nature. "That's nice. Maybe when Dad gets back from his business trip, he can help make some small furniture for the doll. Brian is quite handy. He always enjoys doing crafts with Hannah on weekends. I'm sure he'll create a wonderful home for the doll." When we reached the parking lot, our car was lightly covered in frost. I started the engine, waiting for the heater to warm up the interior. In the passenger seat, Hannah held the doll preciously, as if welcoming a new family member. "Hey Mom, I think I'll name her Elizabeth. Because she looks like a princess, don't you think?" Hearing those words, I couldn't help but smile. Indeed, looking at her elegant appearance, she did seem like a princess who had stepped out of an old court. As I drove away, I glanced at the school building in the rearview mirror. The bustle of the bazaar grew distant. At that moment, I had no idea, or rather, I didn't want to imagine, that this doll would dramatically change our lives. From the day we brought the doll home from the charity bazaar, Hannah's life became colored like a beautiful story. It was the beginning of what seemed like days straight out of an Andersen fairy tale. That evening, Hannah held an unwrapping ceremony for the doll in her room. The way she carefully unwrapped the packaging, peeling away each layer of paper, showed the caution of handling a treasure. She carefully stored the golden ribbon in a box, labeling it "Keepsake." "Elizabeth, this is your room. Hannah created a small space beside her own bed. She laid out a lace handkerchief and rolled up a soft hand towel as a pillow. That night, until bedtime, she kept gently brushing the doll's hair. Elizabeth, as the doll was named, became a constant companion in every aspect of her daily life. They would wake up together in the morning, and the doll would sit in the chair next to her at breakfast. When going to school, Hannah would carefully carry her along. She received special permission from her teacher to play with the doll during breaks. She proudly showed off the doll's outfit changes to her friends' envious gazes. "Elizabeth is my best friend." Hannah's expression when she said this was filled with pure affection. She spent hours with the doll in her room after school, dressing her in small dresses I had made, carefully brushing her hair, sometimes talking to Elizabeth about what happened at school, treating her just like a real friend. At night, she always made a small bed for the doll next to her own. The cute bed that Brian made over the weekend was covered with soft lace sheets that Hannah had chosen. "Good night, Elizabeth. Let's play together tomorrow too." Such peaceful days continued. However, everything would change after that night. It was past midnight. Outside was completely dark, with only the occasional sound of wind rattling the windows breaking the silence. I was just finishing checking some work documents and preparing for bed. A faint knocking sound came from my bedroom door. The sound was small and hesitant, but definitely there. "Mom, are you awake?" When I opened the door, Hannah stood there in her pajamas. She was clutching Elizabeth tightly in her arms, looking as if she might cry at any moment. The dim hallway light cast an eerie shadow on her worried face. "What's wrong? Did you have a bad dream?" "Mom, the doll is making a ticking sound. I'm scared." Hannah's voice was trembling. At first, I thought she might be hearing some mechanical sound. But indeed, a faint mechanical sound could be heard coming from inside the doll. "Can I see it for a moment?" When Hannah timidly handed me the doll, I noticed something odd about its weight. It was too heavy for an antique doll. And certainly, there was a rhythmic sound from inside. Tick, tick. In that moment, a chill ran down my spine. This was clearly not normal. My maternal instinct was sending out a strong warning. "Hannah, let's sleep together tonight." As I invited my daughter into my bed, I made a firm decision. This doll needed to be disposed of immediately. First thing tomorrow morning, I would take it directly to the waste disposal site. In the midnight bedroom, I continued stroking Hannah's small back until she fell asleep. Outside the window, cold wind shook the trees, casting unsettling shadows on the wall. I carefully placed the doll in the closet and made sure to lock the door. The ticking sound could still be faintly heard. This night would become the longest night of my life. I had to deal with this situation as early as possible in the morning. My daughter's safety was paramount. With this singular thought, I waited for dawn. In bed, Hannah slept closely pressed against me. Looking at her peaceful sleeping face, I strengthened my resolve. As a mother, I had to protect my child from this dangerous premonition, even if it meant parting with a beloved doll. The clock hands moved painfully slowly toward dawn. The eerie sound could still be heard from the closet. The regular ticking, like a timer, only increased my anxiety. The street lights suddenly went out, making the surroundings even darker. It was the darkest time just before dawn. Tree shadows flickered on the walls, and occasional gusts of wind rattled the windows. Hannah stirred slightly in my arms but fortunately seemed to be in a deep sleep. Checking my smartphone screen showed 4:15 a.m. The waste disposal site opens at 7 a.m., if I remember correctly. I still had to face this anxiety for over 2 hours. After some hesitation, I decided to call Brian. This situation felt too overwhelming to handle alone. "Melissa? What's wrong at this hour?" My husband's sleepy voice came through. "I'm sorry for waking you, but I needed to talk." I explained the situation in a low voice, about the strange sound coming from the doll, Hannah being frightened, and my sense of unease. "Should I come home right away?" Brian's worried voice gave me some comfort. "No, it's okay. I plan to take it to the disposal site first thing in the morning." "But, am I making the right decision?" "Melissa, I think you should trust your maternal instinct. Honestly, I'm also uncomfortable having something bought from a stranger in our house, especially a children's toy. But Hannah was so fond of it. Her safety comes first. We can always buy her a new doll." "I support your judgment." My husband's voice on the phone carried strong conviction. "I can be back by tomorrow afternoon. Until then, maybe consider staying at a friend's house." "No, it's okay. I'll dispose of it right away." After ending the call, I felt a bit calmer. My husband's words had reinforced my decision. The first light of dawn began to spread gradually from the eastern sky. I watched intently as night turned to day. Never in my life had I wished so desperately for daybreak. The clock showed 6:30 a.m. Hannah was still sleeping in my bed. How wonderful it would be if last night's events had just been a dream. While wishing this, the faint mechanical sound leaking from the closet reminded me that this fear was real. I carefully wrapped the doll in newspaper and placed it in a black garbage bag. With firm resolve to head to the waste disposal site as soon as possible. I could explain everything to Hannah later. Right now, my daughter's safety was the top priority. After disposing of the doll at the waste site, I was driving home. The morning news was playing on the radio. Just as the traffic information ended and the weather forecast was about to finish. Breaking news: an explosion has occurred at the Riverside Waste Disposal site in the St. Paul suburbs. We now go live to the scene for details. At that moment, my hands began to shake. Black smoke could be seen rising from the direction of the waste disposal site I had just left. The announcer continued. At approximately 7:15 a.m., workers at the waste disposal site reported suspicious explosive sounds. A small explosion occurred on site, causing damage to surrounding equipment. Fortunately, due to the early hour, few workers were present, and no injuries have been reported. I quickly pulled the car over to the shoulder. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. If I had been just a few dozen minutes later in bringing it to the disposal site. The mere thought sent chills down my spine. A TV station helicopter was broadcasting aerial footage of the disposal site with rising black smoke. Emergency vehicles, police cars and fire trucks, were arriving one after another at the scene in the live coverage. Police are analyzing surveillance camera footage collected from the scene. They are working to quickly identify suspicious objects. Hearing those words, I made my decision. I needed to report to the police immediately. When I returned home, there was an unfamiliar car parked in front of the entrance. Two men identifying themselves as police officers were conducting interviews with nearby residents. Mrs. Robertson from next door was speaking with one of the officers. It was at yesterday's school bazaar. Everyone was talking about this unusual doll that was on display. The moment they heard those words, the officers' expressions changed. Several hours later, Maplewood Elementary School was filled with investigators. The footage from security cameras installed in the schoolyard was being examined, and bazaar sales records were being checked one by one. Everyone involved in running the bazaar had to be interviewed. Jane, who had managed the antique corner, testified tearfully. That doll arrived as an anonymous donation a week ago. Following regulations, it was verified by the PTA officers. The investigation progressed at a surprising pace. Among the fragments recovered from the explosion site, pieces of the doll's porcelain were discovered. Furthermore, remains of a timer-triggered detonator were found. The scene investigation revealed that this was not an accident but a planned crime. The media competed to report on the incident, sending shockwaves through the local community. The investigation headquarters announcement that the perpetrator likely conspired with multiple accomplices filled my heart with further anxiety. Why did the school bazaar have to be targeted? And who was behind this incident? In the evening, Brian returned early from his business trip. After leaving Hannah with his parents, we went to be interviewed by the police. The investigators asked detailed questions about the strange feeling I had and the sounds I heard late at night. Mrs. Anderson, your courageous decision may have prevented a major disaster. The detective inspector's words filled me with mixed emotions. While the worst might have been avoided, why did such a terrifying thing have to happen? That night, the news was dominated by coverage of the incident. The security camera footage of the doll was broadcast over and over. Each time I saw it, the terror of that midnight came rushing back. Mom, what happened to Elizabeth? Hannah's innocent question upon returning from her grandparents' house left me speechless. To think we had to take away her precious memories in such a way. Outside the window, several media vehicles were parked. This once peaceful suburban town had been deeply shaken by a single doll. About a week after the incident, a shocking truth came to light. The reality was a development that no one could have predicted. The person arrested was none other than my sister-in-law Vanessa. She had carried out the crime by exploiting her position as PTA vice president. During the interrogation process, her meticulous plan was revealed. For 6 months prior, her device history showed she had been researching bomb-making methods on anonymous internet forums. She had carefully purchased electronic components, timers, and explosive materials from separate stores bit by bit, taking precautions not to raise suspicion. The suspect used multiple accounts to gather technical information. I was left speechless at the investigator's explanation. The sister-in-law I had always thought of as meticulous and serious had planned such a thing. Even more shocking was her method at the bazaar. Vanessa had switched the actual donated item with a fake doll containing her homemade explosive. Using her position as PTA vice president, she had tampered with it during the donation verification process. The antique corner was in a less visible location. She apparently calculated that there would be limited buyers due to the higher price setting. The investigation report continued to reveal surprising facts. 1 month before the incident, she had failed in managing her parents' inheritance, resulting in a loss of $300,000. Her misjudgment as an investment advisor had led to an irreversible situation. She was also behind in payments for her parents' nursing home fees. We believe the crime was committed after being driven into a financial corner. In the interrogation room, Vanessa had completely lost her former dignity. "It was all my fault." Her confession revealed struggles unknown to the family. Her parents' nursing home fees were $8,000 per month. On top of that pressure came the investment failure. Backed into a corner, she had reached for the worst possible option: insurance fraud. "I thought if an accident happened, everything would be resolved with the insurance. But I never expected Melissa to." According to her plan, the doll was supposed to explode in the buyer's home. Then it would have been handled as a mere accident, allowing her to collect a large insurance payout. However, my intuitive judgment had thwarted that plan. The investigation process also revealed more complex family relationships. Vanessa, who had single-handedly taken on the care of their parents, had harbored resentment toward her other siblings. No one helped her. No one understood her. Such feelings of isolation had driven her to this point. While the suspect denies the existence of other accomplices, the investigation is ongoing. The investigation headquarters announcement once again shocked the local community. A planned crime by someone in a trusted position as PTA vice president. This fact greatly shook the everyday safety that everyone had taken for granted. That night, Brian and I talked. Why didn't we notice? We should have recognized her suffering earlier. My husband's words carried deep regret. Indeed, Vanessa had seemed a bit different lately. But to think it would turn out like this. The next day, the school held an emergency parent meeting. The gymnasium was filled with concerned parents engaging in heated discussions about future preventive measures. The entire approach to charity activities would be reviewed to ensure such an incident never happened again. That night, Hannah came to my bed. "Mom, was Aunt Vanessa a bad person?" To that innocent question, I carefully chose my words to answer. Sometimes, even adults make wrong choices. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad people. While stroking my daughter's small head, I thought about it. People sometimes make irreversible choices when backed into a corner. But there's always some circumstance behind it. Perhaps understanding that is the first step we can take. Outside the window, camera lights from the media were still flashing. This incident had given our family much to think about. In February, when winter's cold was at its harshest, 3 months after the incident, the trial began at Ramsey County Court. Opening the heavy wooden doors to enter the courtroom, we were enveloped in a tense atmosphere. The spectator seats were filled with local residents and reporters, with what appeared to be plainclothes officers scattered throughout. A solemn silence hung in the courtroom, and while waiting for the judge's entrance, I held Brian's hand tightly. The prosecution's opening statement emphasized the brutality and premeditation of the crime. Security camera footage presented as evidence showed Vanessa repeatedly entering and exiting the antique corner on the day of the bazaar. The defendant abused her position as PTA vice president and exploited a charitable event to carry out this vile crime. The prosecutor's voice echoed through the courtroom. Expert testimony detailed the process of making the explosive device hidden in the doll. The device, assembled from commercially available materials, was set to activate after midnight. I involuntarily shuddered. If my daughter hadn't come to my room that night, frightened. The explosive power was sufficient to destroy objects within a 10-meter radius. The explosive ordnance disposal expert's testimony caused a stir in the gallery. The defense emphasized Vanessa's potential for rehabilitation. They stressed the mental pressure from managing her parents' care and inheritance failure, and the financial constraints that led to the crime. However, their defense rang hollow. The verdict was delivered on a cold morning in early March. The judge's solemn voice resonated through the courtroom. I hereby sentence the defendant, Vanessa Anderson, to 12 years imprisonment for attempted murder, violation of explosives control regulations, and fraud. Additionally, I order payment of $500,000 in damages to the victims and permanently ban entry to school facilities after release. After the verdict, our family faced a major decision. Hannah began to be called the bomb girl at school and needed psychological counseling. Moreover, our anxiety about continuing to live in this area grew. There's a nice property in the Minneapolis suburbs. At Brian's suggestion, we decided to relocate. The new house was in a quiet residential area. Hannah's new school also warmly welcomed her. Mom, I think I can make new friends here. On moving day, Hannah said this with a smile. In her expression, I could sense the gradual healing of her emotional wounds. Meanwhile, this incident had a significant impact on the local community. Maplewood Elementary School completely revised its safety management system for all school events. Professional pre-inspection of donated items became mandatory, and additional security cameras were installed. The charity system itself underwent major changes. Anonymous donations were banned in principle, and history checks became required for all items. Furthermore, security awareness increased throughout the community, and neighborhood watch activities were strengthened. The most significant change was the enhancement of family support systems. A support center for families caring for elderly relatives was established, and initiatives began to share the economic and emotional burden across society. All to prevent another tragedy like Vanessa's. After 6 months in our new home, our family bonds seem stronger than before. We make sure to spend time together every weekend, sharing our feelings with each other. Maybe it taught us the importance of family all over again. When I said this to Brian one night, he quietly nodded. Yes, but from now on, let's create only good memories. Outside the window, spring winds rustled new buds. Our new life was just beginning to sprout as well. The scars from the incident won't easily fade. But this experience taught our family the importance of caring for one another. And above all, the importance of having the courage to trust a mother's instinct. I still believe that to this day. When I opened my eyes, soft morning light gently illuminated the room through the window. Our house in the quiet residential area of suburban San Francisco always greets such peaceful mornings. By the bedside, my husband David was quietly getting ready. He's always an early riser. "Good morning, Catherine." I smiled at his gentle voice and opened my eyes to find David already in his suit, tying his necktie in front of the mirror. Working as an engineer at a tech company, he maintains an early bird lifestyle. "Good morning. You're up early again today." I got up from bed and opened the curtains. Through the window, I could see neat rows of houses with well-maintained gardens. Every time I look at this neighborhood, I'm reassured that we made the right choice in choosing this place. My name is Catherine Miller, 38 years old. I work as a project manager at a major architectural firm. I'm known for my long blonde hair and what others often describe as my intellectual appearance. My dedicated work ethic and meticulous nature might have been shaped during my journey to this position. While preparing breakfast, I was mentally organizing today's schedule. Unlike me, who mainly works from home, David needs to head to the office early. When he sat at the table, I served his usual breakfast: toast, scrambled eggs, and black coffee. "I might be a bit late tonight. Project deadlines coming up." "I understand. I have online meetings all day too, so I'll keep dinner simple." This kind of casual conversation over breakfast is our daily routine. Married for 5 years, this lifestyle naturally fell into place. I have a twin sister, Lauren, who works as a freelance web designer. We look identical, and people always mistake us at first meeting. But our personalities are complete opposites. While I'm meticulous and organized, Lauren is free-spirited with an artistic sensibility. Still, we're close sisters who make sure to have dinner together several times a month. "Catherine, I'll have to cancel our weekend dinner plans. I have a meeting with a new client." That message from Lauren arrived last week. She's single and devoted to her work. Sometimes I worry about her lonely expression, but that's the path she chose. Maybe I shouldn't worry too much. My relationship with my mother-in-law, Margaret Miller, is fairly good too. Coming from a wealthy family, she can sometimes be overly strict, but she's also a warm person who values family. We never miss important gatherings like wedding anniversaries and birthdays. "Catherine, your cooking skills have really improved." Those words from my mother-in-law at last month's dinner party made me happy. Our relationship, which was initially tense, has now become peaceful. I met David at a party hosted by a mutual friend. I was immediately drawn to his gentle nature and how he valued family. We married a year after meeting, and in our 3rd year, we were blessed with our son Matthew. During the day, I immerse myself in work. From my home office, I manage architectural projects and conduct online meetings with my team. I usually have a quick lunch alone, but sometimes I share sandwiches in the garden with my neighbor Sarah. The kids' school has been keeping me busy lately. But Catherine, hearing about your work motivates me to keep going. Conversations with Sarah always warm my heart. She's a mother of 2 and actively involved in PTA activities. In the evenings, my husband and I enjoy quiet dinners together. Sometimes we share a glass of wine while talking about our day. Weekends are for gardening and reading, my hobbies. We also occasionally host home parties for nearby friends. The roses we planted the other day are growing nicely. Weekend gardening is my favorite time. I feel at peace touching the soil and watching the plants grow. David lost his first wife to illness 8 years ago. When I learned this, I hoped I could help heal his emotional wounds. Now, we've built a relationship where we understand and support each other. I'm so glad I met you. Sometimes David whispers these words to me. Each time, I feel our bond growing stronger. I believe these peaceful days would last forever. I never imagined that this life would change dramatically. That day was just like any other spring afternoon. May 15, 2014, a Thursday. I usually work from home, but that day I had unusually taken the afternoon off. I went to a shopping mall in suburban San Francisco to buy Matthew's kindergarten uniform. "Mom, can I play in the kids' space after this?" After choosing the uniform in the children's clothing section, Matthew asked with hopeful eyes. As a reward for always being good, I gladly gave permission. The kids' space was right near the store, with security cameras installed and staff always present. "Just 30 minutes, okay? Mom will do some other shopping meanwhile." Matthew nodded happily and ran toward the kids' space. I never imagined that would be the last time I'd see my son's back. After finishing my shopping at a nearby stationery store, I returned before the promised 30 minutes were up and immediately noticed something was wrong. Matthew wasn't in the kids' space. "Excuse me, have you seen a boy in a blue t-shirt?" Even when I asked the staff, I didn't get a clear answer. My heart started racing. Trying to stay calm, I began searching the nearby stores one by one. "Matthew." There was no response to my calls. As fear began to take over, I sought help from security guards. Soon, an announcement was made over the mall speakers, and multiple security guards began searching. "We should contact the police right away." While nodding to the head of security's words, I was calling David with trembling hands. Though he was in a meeting, he rushed over immediately. "We'll find him. Stay calm." David's voice was steady, but he couldn't hide the worry in his eyes. The police arrived, and a full-scale search began. Security camera footage was reviewed, and witnesses were interviewed. However, no decisive leads were found. By that evening, it was on local news. The headline, "3-year-old missing from San Francisco suburban shopping mall," flashed across the screen. Days later, the search expanded across the state. Helicopters and drones were deployed in a large-scale search operation. The hashtag, Find Matthew, spread on social media, with many people helping to provide information. However, as time passed, promising leads gradually diminished. 1 month passed, then 6 months, then a year. The police investigation reached a standstill. "Isn't there anything we can do?" Night after night, I asked David this question. We hired private investigators and continued our own search efforts. Every year on the anniversary of Matthew's disappearance, we held press conferences, continuing to call for information. Daily life changed dramatically. Days spent immersing myself in work to escape reality. Conversations between my husband and me gradually decreased. Still, David was always my support. He would silently hold my hand and cry with me. "You should take a break." Every time my sister Lauren said this, I shook my head. Giving up felt like abandoning Matthew. I continued posting Matthew's photos on social media regularly, along with age progression images. Maybe someone will spot him. I couldn't let go of that slim hope. 10 years brought us a new life rhythm. Every morning, we set a plate for Matthew. On birthdays, we always prepare a cake. It might be a sad habit, but it became an important ritual for us. "Catherine, you've been so strong." One day, my mother-in-law Margaret said this to me. It was a gentle voice, unusual for her strict nature. Days oscillating between hope and despair. Still, we had to keep moving forward. We made new friends and found different forms of happiness. But deep in our hearts, the scene from that day remained burned in our memories. Life changed gradually but surely. Weekend home parties decreased, replaced by volunteer work supporting families of missing children. Meeting other parents who shared similar experiences gave me a new purpose. Your activities are giving hope to many people. Jane, who leads the support group, told me this. She too was a mother who lost her daughter 15 years ago. By sharing our pain and supporting each other, we could slowly move forward. Still, the changing seasons were especially hard. Cherry blossom season, which Matthew loved. Passing by his former kindergarten would bring back memories of holding his tiny hand. Sometimes, I would see children on the street and imagine what Matthew might look like now. The monthly reports from private investigators always contained the same content. No new leads have been found. Still, waiting for these reports had become part of our lives. Looking back now, those 10 years felt both long and short. We can't get back the lost time. But no one imagined the truth would be revealed in such a way. That night was flowing quietly as usual. After 11 p.m., I was getting ready for bed. David had messaged that he'd be late due to work, so I was relaxing alone in the living room. Outside the window, soft moonlight quietly illuminated the residential area. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I hesitated for a moment at the late-night visitor. Through the monitor, I could see two men in navy blue uniforms. Police officers. My heart started racing. A police visit at such a late hour, something must be wrong. May we have a moment of your time? Yes, what's the matter? As I opened the door, the older officer began speaking quietly. His expression didn't show any urgency, but my anxiety only grew. Do you know this boy? The photograph the officer held out showed a boy around 13. Glossy black hair, dignified eyebrows, and those eyes. Eyes I recognized, but now only existed in distant memories. My hands began to shake. This is my son, but he should have died 10 years ago. Words tumbled out in a trembling voice. The boy in the photo was undoubtedly Matthew. But that was impossible. My son disappeared 10 years ago. Just as I was trying to convince myself he was gone forever, this happened. He's alive. And he wants to meet you. The officer's words hit me with a sense of reality. My knees nearly gave out, but the younger officer quickly helped me to the sofa. What do you mean? To my confusion, the older officer began explaining the situation. In a small town in Montana, a new teacher had become suspicious. There were irregularities in transfer paperwork, and the woman claiming to be the boy's mother showed unusual behavior. As local police investigated the teacher's report, connections to this kidnapping case from 10 years ago emerged. The DNA test results are in. There's no mistake. I couldn't stop crying as I clutched the photo. I immediately contacted David, who interrupted his work and rushed home. The police arranged for us to meet our son at the police station at 9 a.m. the next morning. That night, neither David nor I could sleep. 10 years of emptiness. Our grown son. And why he was suddenly found. Though questions were endless, we were speechless at the fact that our son was alive. By morning, media had already begun gathering around the police station. This development in a 10-year-old kidnapping case was drawing much attention. When we were shown to the meeting room at the police station, my heart felt like it would burst. The door opened, and a boy entered. "Mom." At the sound of that voice, tears burst forth uncontrollably. There he was, my son. Though grown significantly, he still retained traces of his childhood face. But the anxious look in his eyes hadn't changed since he was 3. "Matthew." I fought the urge to embrace him. 10 years had built an invisible wall between us. He must have his own confusion and turmoil. We need to approach this carefully, one step at a time. "May I sit down?" Matthew nodded slightly, and we sat facing each other across the table. David watched from a distance. It was his consideration to make this moment primarily for mother and child. "How have you been?" Perhaps it was a commonplace question. But I didn't know how to bridge this 10-year gap. "Good." His voice was small and slightly shaking. "I went to school every day." Those words squeezed my heart. School. My son's precious days. Time I couldn't watch over him. Who helped with his homework, who cheered at sports days, who cried at graduation ceremonies. The countless stolen memories stabbed at my heart. "Your father would like to meet you too." I turned and looked at David. He slowly approached the table and sat in the chair next to Matthew. "Hello, Matthew." David's voice was shaking too. Our son stared at his father's face and smiled faintly. His expression looked as if he was trying to recall something from a distant memory. "I remember, from photos. The same face Mom showed me." At those words, David and I exchanged glances. Someone had been showing our son our photos. There must be some great mystery hidden there. But now wasn't the time to pursue that truth. "Matthew, I'm so happy to see you." I tried my best to smile. But my voice wouldn't come out properly. Tears kept rolling down my cheeks. "I'm sorry," Matthew suddenly whispered. I couldn't escape. "Because." "It's okay." I immediately interrupted. "You did nothing wrong." "Nothing." The meeting time was 30 minutes. Far too short. But this was just the beginning. From now on, we would have to slowly reclaim our lost time. The police, considering Matthew's psychological care, proposed a gradual reunion program. Daily meetings at set times. And building relationships gradually while receiving counseling from specialists. It might require patience. But for us who had waited 10 years, even this time felt precious. As we left the meeting room, Matthew said in a small voice, "Can we meet again?" "Of course. I promise." This time, I was certain I could keep that promise. Leaving the police station, camera flashes from waiting media went off. But even that commotion felt like events from a distant world to me now. I was just filled with joy at this miraculous reunion and anticipation for the new life about to begin. In the car heading home, David quietly said, "We can start again. As a family." I silently nodded. Indeed, this wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. The truth was revealed a week after our reunion with our son. As we continued our regular meetings at the police station, Matthew was gradually opening up to us. That day too, we were spending peaceful time in the meeting room. Suddenly, tension filled the room as several police officers hurriedly entered. "There's been a significant development." The detective's expression had lost its usual calmness. "We've arrested your sister, Lauren Miller." When I heard those words, my world seemed to stop. Lauren? My twin sister. I wanted to believe it was some mistake. But Matthew's expression told everything. He was looking down, trembling slightly. "Aunt Lauren. I'm sorry." With those words, all reality came crashing down. 10 years ago, the person who took my son from the shopping mall was my sister, who was like my other self. That's why Matthew went with her without question. During interrogation, the whole truth came to light. That day, Lauren appeared dressed like me and had parked a Toyota minivan in the parking lot that she had prepared in advance. Security cameras in the children's clothing section captured her approaching the kids' space looking exactly like me. "Mom's here." At those words, my 3-year-old son took her hand without any doubt. Even his crying would look like just a tired child's bad mood. It was a perfect plan. For 10 years, Lauren had meticulously planned her life with my son. The first 2 years were spent in Portland among artists, living inconspicuously in an area where homeschooling was common. The next 3 years were in Boise, Idaho, living in the suburbs where privacy could be maintained. And the last 5 years were spent in the nature-rich area of Missoula, Montana, minimizing contact with people. Her motive was a twisted obsession with me and revenge. During interrogation, Lauren told everything. Her engagement to Thomas had been broken off 2 months earlier. The cause was his comparison with me. "Why can't you have a life like your sister? She's built a perfect family." Those words left a deep wound in her heart. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Since childhood, our parents had unconsciously compared us. Academic performance, extracurricular activities, friendships. In everything, Lauren was seen as Catherine's sister. Then came my marriage, childbirth, career. While everything was envied by others as ideal, twisted emotions grew inside her. How did Matthew spend those 10 years? Lauren had kept showing him my photos. "This is your real mother. But we can't be together now." My young son had no choice but to accept this explanation. Aunt Lauren was actually kind, Matthew told the police. But sometimes she cried. Especially on my birthday nights. Every year on his birthday, my son was shown our photos and told stories about his real family. However, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Deep-rooted feelings of inferiority from childhood. Constant comparisons throughout school years. Different expectations from parents. And jealousy towards my perfect life. All of these had eaten away at her heart. I deserved to be happy too. When I heard her words from the interrogation from the detective, I was speechless. I had been completely blind to my sister's suffering. For 10 years, Lauren had moved between 3 states with my son, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. Using her work as a freelance web designer, she had carefully lived to avoid being traced. The trial began. In court, I faced my sister for the first time. She had grown thin and lost the light in her eyes. Her once confident expression was gone, replaced only by deep regret. When she noticed my gaze, she opened her mouth slightly. "Catherine, I'm truly sorry. I just wanted to be a mother like you." At those words, I couldn't contain my emotions. Anger, sadness, and a strange sense of release. And the painful realization of my sister's suffering that I had failed to notice. Everything was mixed together. During the trial, both Lauren's calculated planning and her mental instability became clear. She had never abused or neglected my son, rather, she had showered him with excessive affection. His school grades were excellent, and there were no problems in their relationships with neighbors. However, the psychological evaluation revealed that all of this was compulsive behavior aimed at playing the role of the perfect mother. To me, Matthew was truly my son, Lauren testified tearfully on the stand. But it was all happiness built on lies. David was my support throughout. He accompanied me to court and lent his shoulder when I broke down in tears. And above all, he devoted himself to caring for Matthew. "She always showed me your pictures," Matthew said one day. "Said you were my real mother." But somehow, it felt different. The sentence was 25 years in prison. While there were mitigating circumstances, the gravity of a planned kidnapping was taken into consideration. As Lauren left the courtroom, she turned back to look at us one last time. Tears of remorse glistened in her eyes. Our life afterward gradually took on a new shape. Matthew received care from specialists while slowly increasing time with family. School transfer preparations were made carefully. Living together might be too early right now. The counselor suggested this. Indeed, 10 years isn't easily bridged. But we had time. On weekends, we enjoyed picnics in the park or went to movies. Sometimes we just sat quietly together, sharing time. These small accumulations built our new bonds. "Mom, will you read my favorite book to me?" One day, Matthew asked this. It was the first time he had initiated parent-child time on his own. I sat beside him, savoring the joy. After a year, Matthew officially chose to live with us. We prepared a room for him filled with space for 10 years' worth of memories. From now on, let's create new memories together. We all quietly nodded at David's words. Time can be both healing and challenging. But we are definitely moving forward. We can't get back the lost 10 years. Still, the time ahead belongs to us. My mother-in-law Margaret also warmly welcomed her grandson's return, truly delighting in it. Her warmth within strictness has strengthened our family bonds even more. Now, the morning light streaming through the window seems brighter than before. Each new morning brings new hope. After all, our story is just beginning again.